I don't either. I just thought I was good at that.
9 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. We have a moment of reflection. Can we get the adoption of the agenda?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Councilman Boland.
Good morning, Chair Stein and others. Just a couple of quick comments. I know last time we spoke a bit about what was going through the state legislature, the prospect of impacting JEA and our support of the city, as well as even the prospect of even become under the PSC. The council ultimately passed a resolution which really, more than anything, challenged the authority of the state to do so. We saw it as a violation of home rule. But we also did discuss a carve out, but we ultimately did not go on that. We stood tall on our original resolution. And as most of you know, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit today, that it pretty much sounds like it's the prospect of Tallahassee doing anything further with it is very, very unlikely at this point. But we'll have to stay diligent for the coming years. Beyond that, on Friday, there's a special committee of the council looking at the Office of General Counsel and the support it provides to various authorities in the city and the staff, the council and others. And Jay was kind enough to show up and impress upon them the importance of the need of additional support for JEA with the $2 billion operation and having limited access to the kind of legal support they need. It was very clear. And we both acknowledged that the Office of General Counsel, the General Counsel himself acknowledged, but not able to meet the current need. So I think it's something we're going to be taking a look at in the very near future. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Public comments. Pedro. What?
We skipped the right.
What?
Right.
Alrighty. Good morning. My name is Pedro Palafox, and I'm a junior at the University of North Florida, majoring in biochemistry. Throughout most of my life here in Jacksonville, I haven't really heard much about the promotion of renewable energy, especially from my local utility company. It wasn't until I started hearing from my fellow peers about the ramifications of carbon emission, not just here in Florida, but around the country, and along with what politicians have been doing to decrease such an issue. I'm sure as many of you know, carbon emissions are the major cause of global warming, with the burning of fossil fuels being the primary source. I'm here today to discuss with you all about increasing usage of renewable energy and committing to a cleaner future. Cities such as Tampa, Orlando, and Gainesville have already committed to transitioning to 100% renewable energy by a specified time period, but Jacksonville has yet to do so. Renewable energy has many benefits, such as environmental and economic benefits. Renewable energy sources such as solar and wind produce significantly lower greenhouse gas emissions compared to fossil fuels, which will aid in mitigating climate change and reducing air pollution. The renewable energy industry is also growing rapidly. Investing in renewable energy projects will help create more jobs while also providing cost saving over the long term, as it will not require fuel and has lower operating costs compared to traditional energy sources. The cost of renewable energy, such as solar panels, has substantially decreased from an average price of $40,000 in 2010 to $18,000 today. Renewable energy will decrease the cost of electricity by an average of $500 per year for the average household, while protecting the economy from volatile fossil fuel market and slowing the pace of climate disruption. Unlike fossil fuels, renewable energy sources are not finite resources and can provide a steady and reliable supply of energy for the future, reducing dependency on foreign sources of energy and minimizing the risk of supply chain disruption. Reducing the use of fossil fuels and transitioning to renewable energy sources can lead to significant improvement in public health, as it reduces exposure to harmful air pollutants and associated health impacts. JEA, being one of the largest community-owned electric utility companies in the United States, should set an example to other utility companies committing to transitioning from fossil fuel to renewable energy and promoting clean energy. even if it means that it will take decades to do so. Showing commitment will show Floridians that there is a future in clean energy to come, where future generations won't have to deal with the health complications that arise from fossil fuel burning. The benefits of renewable energy are numerous and significant, and transitioning to renewable energy source is essential for addressing the environmental and economic challenges facing the world today. Thank you for your time.
Pedro, I missed the values moment. Walt?
And good morning, Chair Stein and members of the board. My name is Walt Hiscox. I'm the Senior Manager of Electric Distribution at Westside Service Center, and I'm honored today to be giving you the safety briefing and value moments for today's meeting. First, let's take a moment to go over the safety briefing. For those of us participating downtown, in the event of an emergency, our JEA security department will contact 911 and coordinate any required evacuation. If the emergency requires an evacuation, safely exit through one of the two marked exits in this meeting area. You can either exit the north side of the building on Monroe Street, or you can exit the west side of the building via the main entrance exit on Pearl Street. We will assemble in front of the Duval County Courthouse located at the northeast corner of Adams and Clay Street. If anyone needs medical assistance or help with safely evacuating, please notify a nearby JEA security officer. Always be cognizant of the potential of trip hazards in and around your respective areas. And lastly, please remember to keep your cell phones on silent and laptops on mute when not actively speaking during today's board's meeting. So before I get into the value moment, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my department. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Walt Hiscox. I'm the Senior Manager of Electric Distribution at Westside Service Center, and I've worked at JEA for over 17 years now. Our department, Electric Distribution, Construction, and Maintenance, or EDCM as it's sometimes called, is a large group that consists of around 200 employees based out of Southside Service Center and Westside Service Center. We're responsible for the installation, repair, and maintenance of our entire distribution system, which consists of a wide variety of jobs such as streetlights, new services, pole replacements, restoration work, and major projects. Being a 24/7 operation has its challenges, but the dedicated individuals on our team understand the impact that the vital work we perform has on our community. They take great pride in completing their jobs as quickly and as safely as possible, particularly when an outage is involved. As many of you are aware, electric line workers have one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. It's based on this that I thought it would be most appropriate for me to give a values moment based on our core value of safety. The moment I'd like to share isn't necessarily a single moment, but has more to do with the lineman's mantra of "I am my brother's keeper," which is deeply embedded in our safety culture. And some of you may be asking, what does that mean? It has to do with the understanding that we are all human and mistakes happen. It is everyone's on the crew responsibility to look out for not only their own safety, but the safety of their co-workers, because in our industry, mistakes can be catastrophic. If you've ever been to Westside Service Center's auditorium, you may have noticed that we have some shadow boxes hanging up on the wall. One of them is filled with a broken harness, another with a burnt shirt, and one with a bloodied glove. These serve as reminders of times when things did not go right and the importance of always staying focused on the task at hand. You see, the thing is, people don't get hurt on purpose, and that's why it's so imperative that we all be there as an extra set of eyes for one another to stop mistakes before they happen. Our outstanding safety results at JEA are not achieved by chance, and we believe that practicing this mantra each and every day has had a huge impact. I think it's important to note that this approach is useful in just about any environment, so I would encourage you to consider adopting it into your safety culture, both on the job and at home. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your presentation, but more importantly, what you and your members do. Appreciate it. Going back to public comments, Logan Cross.
Hello, my name is Logan Cross. I'm the chair of the Sierra Club of Northeast Florida and a concerned citizen. Since its inception, JEA's mission or purpose has been to deliver affordable, reliable electricity, and it has remained so currently. Throughout the stakeholder advisory planning process that I participated in and in attending these meetings, I've kept waiting for a vision of what JEA hopes to become would emerge. What does JEA want to be in 10 to 20 years? What type of utility? The conclusion I've arrived at is the mission or purpose statement and JEA's vision are one and the same. The vision of JEA for the future is to deliver affordable, reliable electricity, irregardless of the consequences. And I will say that the proposed electrical integrated resource plan that's presented to you is an affirmation of that notion. The plan does include some positives, like a commitment to be at 35%, quote, clean energy by 2030. That is good. But the question remains is how much of that would be included if JEA had been able to get out of its contract with Plant Vogtle? Would the 12% nuclear energy be part of that plan? I kind of doubt it. Further, how much of the 23% solar energy that will be added would be included had JEA not purchased properties back in 2017 and 18 dedicated for the purpose of creating solar farms? So otherwise, the electrical integrated resource plan that's presented to you all for approval today is pretty much JEA digging in its heels on dependence on fossil fuels. It is holding on to its north side generating station, I guess forever, because there's no timeline for the decommissioning of that plant. And I might add that the 2 generating units at that plant are over 50 years old at this time and account for over 50% of JEA's carbon emissions. The other thing it does that's probably even more scary is it's committing to building a combined cycle natural gas plant, which essentially locks JEA into natural gas dependence, fossil fuel dependence through at least 2050. So in other words, and if you want a little bit of substantiation of that, look at the appendices in the plan that you've been given and look at the carbon emissions over time. Do they plateau? Do they decline? No, they increase on an annual basis well into the future. So in other words, in conclusion, JEA has put itself on a path to become a dinosaur in the electrical industry, generating industry. And in so doing, it's giving the JEA sales advocate a gift on the silver platter. They can claim that JEA has become an antiquated utility. It's not up to the times, and it needs to be sold to a company like Florida Power and Light that will give it that vision. Thank you very much for your time.
Logan, thank you for your time. Trevor?
Hello, my name is Trevor Spinks. I attend the University of North Florida, where I will be graduating with a bachelor's degree in chemistry this upcoming week. Today, I'm speaking as a concerned citizen of Duval County. I'm here today to share my opinion on diversifying JEA's power generation portfolio. Diversifying the generation of electricity is important for the wealth and security of our local community. Many families and businesses are dependent on such electricity to feed their families and provide for their families. Diversifying the generation of electricity will increase our community's freedom and mitigate the effects that worldly affairs and outside influences have on our community. Regardless of the policies of federal administrations, our dependence on foreign goods and the price associated with those imports would thus be minimized. The ability to minimize the effects of such policies lie within our ability to diversify and reduce external dependency for the generation of electricity. Such diversification could be implemented by utilizing our local resources. Alternative energies such as solar and wind are viable to a certain extent, but further diversification should be explored. Potential methods such as waste to energy, utilizing the tides within our ocean and the St. Johns River, and even the extraction of hydrogen from urine. Having the means to generate electricity in various methods increases JEA's power threshold and therefore will be able to meet the demands of an increasing community for decades to come. I am by no means advocating to cease true and tested methods. I'm simply stating that the ability to lean on other methods of electricity generation as being advantageous to the wealth and the security of our community. Thank you very much.
Trevor, thank you for your comments and congratulations on your near graduation. Alan Smith.
Thank you. I want to take this time to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to speak to each and every one of you today. My name is Alan Smith, and I'm a senior undergrad student at the University of North Florida studying chemistry. Over the last few months, I have taken a deep dive into looking for possible solutions to overcome the increase in greenhouse gas emissions that has been growing over the last few years, causing detrimental changes to our environment. With the energy sector producing a good portion of the total greenhouse gas emitted into our environment today, I urge JEA to help close the gap between Jacksonville and other cities by progressively moving towards using renewable energy. This will better align JEA's action with the vision of providing clean, safe, reliable, and reasonably priced electronic service while remaining environmentally sound. For decades, Florida has been synonymously known as the Sunshine State. With this in mind, Jacksonville is not taking up the potential for having a large framework of solar panels to produce solar energy. It is reported that existing rooftop systems in Florida have potential to produce 7.2 kilowatts per hour per day, which happens to be the highest solar power potential in the United States. Through the Inflation Reduction Act signed into law last year, it gave the opportunity for many energy sectors across the United States to have the necessary financing to continue the push for improving infrastructure of establishing a greener country. Money from this act can be implemented to start laying the framework of using solar panels as one of our main sources of energy in the city of Jacksonville to ultimately lower the number of greenhouse gases through our burning of natural gas. Although many people can agree that solar panels are a very valuable way to produce energy, many cities like Jacksonville do not have the necessary space to produce a high amount of energy needed for consumer use. So this will clearly require building more transmission lines outsourced from suburban areas around Jacksonville. These transmission lines will increase the overall capacity of using more solar energy by connecting the energy produced through these systems to the power grid that is currently used today. And though these lines have a cost, it represents a good investment for our future. Jacksonville must catch up with other cities to reach the national goal of having 100% carbon-free electricity in the next few decades. As the incentives are starting to grow for the use of renewable energy through business and consumer use, it'll be economically beneficial to start increasing the total amount of renewable energy from the reported 2% currently used by JEA. Thank you.
Alan, thank you. Lori Ann.
Hi, good morning. Lori Ann Santa Maria. I'm a JEA customer. First, I want to thank the IRP committee and acknowledge that moving from 2% to 35% renewable by 2030 will be no small feat. But I also want to say that it's not enough. One big concern is the addition of the new natural gas plant. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, 84% of new generating capacity added this year in the United States will be renewable energy. 84%. That's 15.9% of that will be natural gas, and that will be surpassed for the first time this year by additional battery storage that will make up 16.5% of new generating capacity. So cost and reliability are no longer barriers for renewable energy. And the plants being added this year were baked into the plan before the IRA was passed. So that means that the economics are only going to get better going forward. So my only ask this morning is that the board take these numbers into account and challenge the notion that we need to saddle another generation of ratepayers with the burden of paying for a more expensive source of energy. If I were in your shoes, I would dig really, really deep on this one. If the rest of the country can move away from natural gas, why can't we? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Josh?
Here today, my name is Dr. Joshua Melko. I'm an associate professor at the University of North Florida. Today, members of the board, the proposed integrated resource plan is before you. And I realize it would be tough to voice a dissenting opinion given all the hard work that's gone into this IRP proposal. JEA's leadership is strong. JEA's employees are great people, hard workers, and we're so lucky to have them all working at our community-owned utility. But you, the board, are ultimately responsible for making sure that JEA's path forward is one that respects all of our residents, one that attracts businesses, one that is fiscally sound, and one that benefits future generations. So I hope you listen to the community today. JEA is a community-owned utility, and the community clearly wants more renewable energy. They're voicing their opinion, and they're watching the vote today. So we'll see what choice you make. You can also signal to prospective businesses with your vote today. Businesses that want clean energy because it's cheaper, because their employees want it, because their customers want it. As crazy as it sounds, these businesses are paying attention to IRP proposals like this one. So what will you say to them? What choice will you make today? You must also capitalize on economic incentives. Just last week, the Department of Energy identified Jacksonville's north side as being eligible for a 10% tax break on top of the 30% from the Inflation Reduction Act. That's a 40% off sale on JEA to own its own solar moving forward. And that sale's not going to last forever. Renewables are cheaper than fossil fuels, and other utilities are setting their course aggressively. So why not us? There's never been a better economic opportunity to invest in clean energy. When you vote on the IRP proposal, you can accept the modest increases in renewable energy being proposed, or you can ask for a bit more. You can greenlight the planning of a new natural gas facility, or at minimum, you can insist there be an exit strategy incorporated. That would allow for an easy pivot to renewables as they get cheaper and easier in the next few years. These are your choices. And I just want to close by acknowledging the young people that spoke today. At their age, I did not ever want to get up early, let alone come and publicly speak, let alone at a utility board meeting. Are you kidding me? So I think that just speaks volumes. It's incredibly inspiring. And so I just, hope you make the tough decision today, thinking of them and thinking of the next generation. Thank you.
Josh, thank you. Ariel?
Good morning. My name is Ariel Villaraza, and I am an upcoming graduate at the University of North Florida. I recently just bought my first home and was looking for options on solar power. While I was researching on this, I learned that JEA has different programs available to the community. First, I'd like to share that not many homeowners in Jacksonville are aware of this alternative source to generating electricity and the benefits that it has to offer. If more people knew about this, they would quickly learn that choosing solar panel would help with long-term savings and would also help by improving the quality of our environment. On the JEA website, it mentions your commitment to providing the community with reliable resources while ensuring that the environment is also protected. While the majority of our electricity is generated by solid fuel and natural gas and only some solar. I feel that in order to expand on your commitment to reducing the use of non-renewable resources that are continuously harming the quality of our environment, start with improving on the marketing of rooftop solar energy programs so that more people know about it and can consider this option. For those who have considered going solar, one of the things stopping people is the initial upfront cost. Here, I would suggest a reimbursement program or a payment plan program to help low-income households obtain solar panels for their homes who are also wanting to reduce their power bill. This could even be funded using federal money available from the Inflation Reduction Act, but only if JEA were to apply for it. Some homeowners are unable to afford installing solar panels themselves, but JEA should still seek to provide these homes with solar energy by increasing JEA solar resources and decreasing the amount of fossil fuel energy used. Since the price of solar energy is now cheaper than fossil fuels, this can reduce the utility bills of all our residents. The lack of marketing has slowed the adoption of solar panels since the average homeowner in Jacksonville does not know much about it or its benefits. Many residents who are experiencing an increase in their utility bill should be given the option of choosing solar panel. So please remove any obstacles to rooftop solar in Jacksonville and increase your marketing efforts to ensure everyone can make the right choice for their home energy supply. You have the power to make this happen and to set the future of our community up for success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariel. Cam Young?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So my name is Cameron Young. I'm an undergraduate researcher at the chemistry department over at the University of North Florida. In my spare time, I also operate as a liaison between the leadership of some of the science and technology-based student organizations at the university, such as the American Chemical Society, the Biomedical Sciences Club, and the Society of Physics Students. It is in that capacity that I am really here speaking to you today. I just want to share with you some of our views over as students of the university. So I currently live near the university, but I've really lived all over the city since moving here in 2005. Growing up in such a beautiful city, I took for granted how nice we have it here in Jacksonville. And try explaining to a little boy that not all other little boys get to grow up with beaches and rivers to play in. So now that I'm an adult, I look to Jacksonville for my own future. I wonder what sort of home it might be for my children one day. And it's really meaningful to me that JEA is owned by the city. I understand that that's not the case in a lot of other places. And I think it's important that you guys maintain that and protect your community's pride in that. I think that that's important to upholster. And I just want to say that as students of Jacksonville universities and the future leaders in science and technology, the interests of the students that I represent should weigh on your conscious some as you make decisions about the future of the city and JEA's plans with it. And I would just say that it's important that Jacksonville not just keep up with the current trends and resources and reliable fuel sources, but be an innovator. We want Jacksonville to be what's looked towards by other cities in the state, not just keeping up with the trends of the time. I would personally like to see a greater commitment to future-proofing the city economically from the greater impacts of continued reliance on coal power to light our community. I think that you all may fail to recognize one of the core qualities of my generation being insistent pettiness when ignored. Put simply, I imagine that if you don't make some of these well-educated future industry leaders feel as though you're making a conscious effort to innovate, they're simply going to move to one of the other cities in Florida making a more conscious effort. I think that that's bad for our economy. You want these people here leading our future and creating businesses and jobs here in the city. Finally, to me, it makes no sense. Don't starve our city of my generation's best and doom your own grandchildren to have to breathe in the particulate from just breathing coal all the time. And finally, I would just say, look at all the people that showed up here to voice that opinion to you. That's only going to continue to get louder as a voice in the future. If you don't think there will be twice as many people speaking against coal power next year and then twice as many the next year, you're just blind to the future. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Kara Teeters?
Good morning. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Kara Tedens, and I am a chemistry student at the University of North Florida. I would like to talk to you today about renewable energy. In order to create a sustainable future, Jacksonville must move towards more renewable energy sources and diminish our reliance on fossil fuels. Considering that JEA is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Jacksonville, JEA's application of clean renewable energy is the only way to reduce our emissions and protect our environment and way of life here in Jacksonville. In 2022, JEA only had 2% of clean energy within its energy mix, and the current goal is to reach 35% clean energy by 2030. However, this sets us behind other cities in Florida and across the country. 13 cities in Florida, including Tallahassee and Gainesville, have already committed to 100% clean and renewable energy by 2050, and I believe that we must increase our efforts towards this goal. Implementing renewable energy and eliminating our usage of fossil fuels is an essential change that must be made sooner rather than later. Climate change caused by emissions has already caused significant changes in our environment in the greater Jacksonville area, including increases in rainfall, stormwater runoff, and pollution into our waterways. A study done by Florida State University has highlighted that the Jacksonville area as a hotspot for potential climate gentrification, which would force residents to abandon their current homes due to land changes caused by climate change. Jacksonville is home to many different areas that are important to biodiversity and the residents here that are at risk of being damaged due to the effects of greenhouse gas emissions. We must change the way we collect energy before the environment is damaged beyond repair and we lose areas that make Jacksonville a great place to live. Implementing renewable energy is not only beneficial to residents in the greater Jacksonville area, but to JEA as a company as well. Renewable energy sources have become much more competitive compared with fossil fuels and may be cheaper to produce in the long run. Additionally, as more people become aware of the increasingly drastic issue of climate change, more consumers and companies are demanding the elimination of fossil fuel dependence. By committing to 100% clean and renewable energy, you will be demonstrating your commitment to sustainability and attract businesses and consumers to Jacksonville who are aware of the environmental impact of their energy consumption. Ultimately, prioritizing sustainability is not only beneficial for the planet, but also is a good business move as the issue is brought to more people's attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have online?
This is Landon. We do have someone in the virtual audience with the raised hand. Abra Himad, your hand is raised. You may go ahead and proceed.
Hello, my name is Abra Himad. I'm a senior at the University of North Florida, majoring in chemistry. I'm a concerned resident of the Jacksonville community. I'm here today to express my support for a JEA's goal to achieve 100% clean energy by 2050. While I'm pleased to see that JEA has already made progress in increasing its use of renewable energy, I believe that more can be done to increase the use of renewable energy sources. Specifically, I would like to encourage JEA to explore opportunities to increase its investment in renewable energy projects, expand its partnership with renewable energy providers, support the development of new renewable energy projects in the area, and encourage customer adoption of renewable energy. According to a report by International Renewable Energy Agency, increasing the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix to 36% by 2030 could result in a reduction of global carbon dioxide emission by up to 4.2 billion tons per year. This reduction in emission is equivalent to the annual emission of more than 1.2 billion cars. Furthermore, renewable energy technologies such as solar, wind power, and are becoming increasingly cost competitive with traditional fossil fuels. According to the International Energy Agency, the cost of solar power has fallen by 89% over the past decade, while the cost of wind power has fallen by 70%. Their cost reduction make renewable energy an increasingly attractive option for utilities such as JEA. There are many community-owned electric utilities that have successfully incorporated renewable energy into their energy mix and have seen positive results. One example is the City of Aspen's municipal utility in Colorado, which has been securing 100% of its electricity from renewable energy sources since 2015. The city's renewable energy mix includes hydroelectric, wind, and solar sources. The utility has reduced its carbon emission by more than 90% of the transition to renewable energy has also helped the city reduce energy costs and improve energy security. By increasing the use of renewable energy sources beyond the current 4% level, JEA can help to reduce greenhouse gas emission, improve air quality, and support the development of new renewable projects in the area. This will not only help the environment, but also creates a job and supports economic growth in our community. I strongly urge JEA to take a bold action to increase its use of renewable energy sources and help to build a cleaner, healthier, and more prosperous future for the Jacksonville community. Thank you for consideration of my comments.
Thank you for all those public comments.
There is one other raised hand from the public. Miriam You are up next.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Mariam Fadai. I am a senior at the University of North Florida majoring in chemistry. In the 14 years that I have lived in Jacksonville, I have heard the terms renewable energy, global warming, and greenhouse gas emission the most in the past 3 to 4 year life. The more research I did, the more I realized the harms of coal-fired power generating plants and how they are the largest gas contributors to global warming. Since we only have one world to live in as of right now, we all need to do our part in decreasing air pollution and the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere to slow climate change. Today, I am here to advocate to the JEA board to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to reduce global warming and extreme weather events by replacing the use of coal and natural gas with increases in the use of wind and solar energy to generate electricity in Jacksonville. I know that JEA has been taking part in reducing carbon emissions by replacing the coal-fired electric power plant in Joliet, Georgia with natural gas in 2022. This action taken by JEA not only lowered JEA's operating costs, but it also reduced carbon emissions by approximately 1.3 million tons per year. Although this was a big step taken by JEA, the Northside generating station is still open, and it uses a combination of fossil gas, coal, petcoke, which has been the primary source of greenhouse gas emission in Duval County for decades. Furthermore, only 2% of the electricity JEA generates come from renewable energy sources. Florida, being called the Sunshine State, has plenty of sunshine to create solar-generated electricity, and JEA should use this as an advantage. If JEA starts using wind and solar energy to generate electricity, it will not only lower the prices of and demand for natural gas and coal, but also reduce the level of carbon emissions. In order to reduce greenhouse gas emission in Duval County, JEA should also stop the use of fossil fuels in the North Side generating station and replace it with natural gas. Furthermore, JEA should commit to using more renewable energy by 2030. According to the Energy Information Administration, Orlando and Tallahassee have already committed to using 100% renewable energy. Although major change like this is not expected of JEA, we as the residents of Duval County expect JEA to increase the use of wind and solar energy by 2030. This will not only help lower operational costs of JEA and help the residents of Jacksonville by lowering their bills, but it will also help keep the planet clean and livable for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Landon, any other?
No other additional comments or raised hands. Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll hand it over to Jay.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome to the JEA board meeting. I'd like to thank, especially today, all the team members, contractors that do work every day to keep our system running and operating, but specifically those who've worked over the last few years to make this new building possible. Our customers are provided with better quality service. Our team members are working in spaces specifically designed to allow them to work in a manner that they work best. There's still a lot of work to be done in the building. We're making progress every day, but I appreciate the effort that it has taken to get to this point. I also like to thank board members for your continued service to JEA and the community, and thank Councilmember Boylan for being here, helping represent City Council at this meeting, and appreciate that you were present at the meeting with the review of the OGC last week. Thank you for that update. As you can see, many people are here today to talk about the Electric Integrated Resource Plan. made that we have until the last few weeks or last month, we've only had 2% renewable energy. And we've added some to get to 4%. And as I've said in other meetings, that is not enough. And so our goal is to look at 2030, 35% clean energy, retire less efficient generating resources by 2030. Again, I think that tops with the some of the comments that the public has made today. 80% carbon reduction from 2005 is a significant decrease in our carbon reduction goals. Being a leader in clean energy by serving all of our own JEA facilities with clean energy. Efficiency programs. None of these 5 goals are complete with specific plans. The IRP itself helps give us guidance and direction. We've added in the past few months some solar generation in our portfolio with an agreement through the Energy Authority and FPL. We're working on adding some solar generation with the Florida Municipal Power Agency. We're working on adding solar to our own sites that were supposed to have had solar on them a couple of years ago. And we are close to Plant Vogtle coming on with zero carbon emission energy. These are all short-term efforts, but we still need a plan for over 500 megawatts of solar. We still need a plan for transmission to move power around our system and into our system in a different way than we have in the past. We still need a plan for distributed energy, and we need to work with electric vehicles, electrification, and energy efficiency. That is all to say that this IRP was a significant lift, but the work has just really begun. We'll begin another round of the IRP so that we can come back and update targets, goals, and plans. This IRP is the beginning of the work that needs to be updated every 3 years. And the reason we have not put goals in place for 2040 and beyond is the world continues to change. It changes so much that we need to remain focused on the short-term goals that were consistent with several of the scenarios in the IRP. We'll be focusing with a team to meet these goals and a group of people completing more complete enterprise planning efforts in the coming years to be sure that we continue down the right path. Speaking of being on the right path, last week, JEA joined the Florida Municipal Power Agency as a member. FMPA is an Orlando-based wholesale power agency that supports Florida's 33 municipal utilities. This partnership will allow us to maximize our effort in providing customers with affordable, reliable, and clean power. We're going to be able to enter into a significant project to supply clean energy onto our system that will help meet our goals that we are trying to set today for 2030. Part of what we're working towards is how to best fund all of the work and projects that we need to meet these goals. Mentioned before that we're improving our capabilities to pursue federal and state funding sources. We've identified an energy efficiency grant of nearly $1 million that is granted to the city of Jacksonville under a program with the Department of Energy. This grant will align very well with the weatherization project that our teams have been working on that Marty Lanahan has championed with energy saving programs in homes in the historic East Side. We're grateful for the city's Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Dr. Charles Moreland, and the Director of Strategic Partnerships, Dawn Lockhart, who have been working with us, and the city's moving forward to access this DOE grant. We'll continue to work on other funds, including some of the IRA funds that were mentioned earlier today. As a community-owned utility, it's our job to ensure that we are making the right decisions to offer reliable services at reasonable costs. It's one of our strategic objectives to maintain reasonable rates. When we compare our combined water, wastewater, and electric bills for an average user of 1,000 kilowatt hours per month and 6,000 gallons of water per month, we're able to show those reasonable rates. In April, we had the lowest bill for that average customer compared to other large metros in Florida, including us in Miami and Tampa, Orlando, Tallahassee, and Gainesville. Keeping these rates reasonable will continue to require a lot of work, and we're working on a budget right now. But with pressure on supply chain and growth in regulations, not to mention the 30% of our workforce that can retire, there is pressure from all angles on our rates. It's our job to maintain reasonable and affordable rates. We're doing that now, as you can see on this chart, and we're going to work to keep on doing that for our budget in 2024 and beyond. We've always had a plan to need rate increases for our electric in the next few years, largely driven by the startup of Plant Vogtle. As we work on the longer term forecast, we may need slightly higher than previously announced rate increases. There's a lot more to come on that in the next few weeks and months as we continue to work on the budget. We can't really talk about planning for the future without discussing electrification, especially and specifically electric vehicles and fleets. As we lead up to the recommendation for you to approve the IRP goals later in the meeting, David Porter, who's Vice President of Electrification and Sustainable Energy Strategy for the Electric Power Research Institute, will speak about electric vehicles. He's here today with Kathy Dalton. Jordan Pope will do a more formal introduction of Mr. Porter, explain a little bit about what EPRI is and how it supports our research and development efforts. So thank you for joining us, David. And Kathy, we appreciate that. Look forward to your presentation. After his presentation, Matt Lundeen, who is Director of Distributed Resources, will present a little bit about the efforts that we are doing to support the community in electrification and electric vehicles. And then Bailey Burnell, who's Director of Facilities and Fleet Services, will discuss our electric vehicles in our own fleet. And speaking of the fleet, when Bailey gets up here, I would like for you to recognize that she leads a group that's been recognized for an accomplishment. I'd like to congratulate the Fleet Services team for being selected as the National Association of Fleet Administrators, one of the top 100 best fleets departments in America. And so we appreciate the work that they do to keep our system running. Over the past few months, we have recognized not only fleet, but we've recognized other team members who have been involved in rodeos and other events. In fact, we have two teams going to Toronto in June to compete in the Water Operations Challenge that we talked about the last time that we were together. It's always fun to recognize a group of people that are supporting our vision of improving lives and building community. It takes all 2,100 employees plus a lot of contractors to keep our systems running and operating smoothly. And today I'd like to wrap up my report by honoring some of those team members. In just a minute, John Santiago and Rocky Waldrop will, both from the electric construction and maintenance team, will come up to recognize team members that competed in the Florida Municipal Electric Association, Lineworkers Rodeo, and the American Public Power Association Lineworkers Rodeo over the past couple of months. I want to show you a short video and then let John and Rocky give you more details. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to thank the board for having us this morning. My name is John Santiago. I'm a CNM working foreman over at Southside Service Center. Been a JA over 28 years. The Florida Lineman Competition is an event where public power linemen come together from all over the region, demonstrate their knowledge and skills. It was established back in 2001 and has become a tradition built to strengthen the bond and brotherhood among line workers and building a stronger network of linemen when it comes time for receiving or providing mutual aid. If you haven't had the opportunity to be a part of one, we encourage you to join us. It will not disappoint. We wear our JEA apparel with pride and always represent JEA well. We have a great group of organizers and competitors, and it takes all of us working together to make these events a huge success. There are several utilities that come out to this annual event with the same goal in mind, and that is to win. The competition consists of several events such as Hurt Man Rescue, transformer changeouts, insulator and cross-arm replacements, and our apprentices even have a mystery event to compete in. The teams are judged on how safe, quick, and precisely they can complete each event. Although, when it comes to the award banquet ceremony, the JA teams always walk the stage and bring home some hardware. The support from JA is so important to us as a whole. Without that, these rodeos would not be a success. Equally as important are all the families that come out to show their support and to cheer us on. I would also like to acknowledge a group of people who, without them, these events wouldn't go off as seamless as they do. They are managers Jerry Creel, Walt Hiscox, Angel Vilches, and Brandy Taylor. Also, the OSAs that they put on a lot of work, get us looking like we do, and make sure we're taking care of our Lisa Milam and Erica DiTomaso. Without them, I don't know what we'll do. But thanks again, and have a great day.
Good morning. I'm Rocky Waldroot. I'm a construction and maintenance working foreman at the West Side Service Center. I'm here this morning to talk a little bit about our JEA rodeo teams and how they did in the rodeos that we have competed in so far this year. We have competed in the Florida Municipal Electric Association rodeo, hosted by OUC in Orlando, and the American Public Power Association rodeo, hosted by Kansas City Board of Public Utilities in Kansas City. At the FMEA rodeo in Orlando, there were 11 utilities represented, 77 total apprentices, and 22 journeyman teams. We were represented by 5 apprentices. Guys, as I call your name, please stand up for a moment. Let everybody put a face with the name. Austin LaFavor, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Austin. Hunter Thomas. Peyton Thompson. Noah Sapp, actually, he worked last night on trouble with the crew, so he's home, I'm sure, getting some much needed rest. And Ryan Cornegay. Ryan Cornegay at the FMEA rodeo won 3rd in the 15 kV arrestor changeout and won 3rd in the mystery event. Cornegay also won best overall out of 77 apprentices. State champ. All right. For our journeyman teams, we had 2 teams. One team consisted of Dan Bay, Matt Poncher, Clay Cook, and Jeremy Starr. The other team was Doug Bay, Caleb Macabetus, Cody Stokes, and Adam Holland. Bay, Poncher, Cook, and Starr were 6th overall. Would have been 3rd had they not gotten a 2-point deduction. Bay, Maccabetus, and Stokes and Holland were 3rd in the 4 kV crossarm event changeout. The APPA rodeo in Kansas City, there were 41 utilities present, 45 journeyman teams, and 100 apprentices. We took the same 5 apprentices. Noah Sapp won 2nd in the crossarm relocate event. Ryan Cornegay won 1st in the cutout relocate and won 1st overall, national champ. We took 1 journeyman team, Bay, Maccabetus, Stokes, and Holland. They took 3rd in the 2.4 kV cutout and insulator changeout. We hope to go back to Kansas City in the fall to the International Lineman's Rodeo. We're going to take the same 5 apprentices. Our journeyman teams are expecting new family members in the fall, so they're not going to be able to go. Maybe some new linemen coming up. For those that don't know, JEA is hosting next year's FMEA rodeo. John and I were committee members and chief judges for this year's FMEA rodeo in Orlando. We were part of all planning and helped design, develop, and build events for the rodeo. We are already working on some locations and have reached out to our Florida brothers and sisters in our industry for assistance. We will have them do as John and I did for OUC to assist in planning and judging events. In our team meeting a couple of weeks ago, we expressed our need for support from our JEA family in organizing this event. I have already had several calls from coworkers that are willing to step up to the challenge. OUC is going to be a hard act to follow. We will need volunteers to help with scorekeeping, auditing, and various other things that are required. This event will showcase a very small part of what is required of us in our trade, and we encourage everyone to come out and enjoy and watch your local linemen and apprentice linemen do what we do best. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the frontline workers in our organization makes us so great. So as a group, can y'all stand up one last time?
No, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I appreciate everyone for all the jobs they do, but particularly today, the teams that are here that are representing JEA more broadly. I appreciate that. I know that y'all can think of almost nothing more fun than to be in a board meeting for a couple hours. And you are, of course, welcome to stay as long as you would like. So, thank you.
What's the date of the rodeo?
March, but we don't have a specific
have a
date yet.
specific
We will get it to you and let you know.
I can't judge, but put me to work. I'll do something.
Thank you.
The only comment I make, Jay, in this IRP process, everybody's looking at production, but transmission is going to be a key item that needs to be thought through on how we are successful in this process. And so I know everybody's thinking about what we can produce, how we can produce it, but how we get it to.
I think that's a really good point. It's really the difference that we want to make in the next IRP, the next couple of IRPs, is that traditionally IRPs are focused on the generation side. It's an electric generation integrated resource plan. And we plan on putting a lot more effort into what the transmission side of the puzzle and the distributed energy resources that are coming online, what that will look like. So
I was going to hold my comment until we got to the IRP, but many of our speakers' schedule doesn't allow them to stay, later. And I just want to kind of say as a lesson learned with this IRP that maybe the next time we should consider going out to 2050, because the cities that are referenced as being net zero have a 2050 net zero and component to it. And I think I was looking at this as the first step in a long journey. I know Tampa and I believe Orlando is a 2050 hurdle for net zero.
Yeah.
So maybe we look even further out the next time we do that.
Yeah, I think that we're going to need to continue to look further out each time, and technology is changing, and we were not as comfortable picking numbers that we didn't know exactly what the technology might be to help solve that problem. And so we did focus on this one in kind of the first 10-year increment, but I think we do need to be able to continue looking further out and be able to have good plans for that. So thank you for that.
They have placeholders along that journey to 2050 that match kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I just think lesson learned, maybe we put a stake in the ground for later.
Thank you.
Any other comments? With that, we'll get the JEA performance update with Alberto.
Good morning, Chair Stein and members of the board. My name is AJ Soto. I have worked at JEA for 3 months. My highly competent and talented team is responsible for management and administration of JEA's debt portfolio, which entails issuance of new bonds, refinancing existing debt to achieve debt service savings, and maintaining compliance with all bond requirements. Additionally, we are responsible for cash management, which ensures funds are available to sustain the organization's initiatives, and accounts payable, which ensures that we pay our bills in a timely manner. Today's performance update includes data through March 31st, 2023. For this month's update, there have not been many changes since last month, and the majority of JEA's performance metrics are currently on track. We are pleased to highlight the improvement in our residential customer satisfaction metric. We previously reported that JEA was ranked in the 4th quartile of utilities in the fall of 2022. The results were largely attributed to dissatisfaction with the monthly cost of service. General favorability towards JEA has since improved, placing JEA in the 2nd quartile of the 149 utilities surveyed nationally, and 5th among utilities in the South mid-size segment. Our improvement in overall customer satisfaction can be attributed to lower monthly bills due to declining fuel prices and moderate weather, employee involvement in activities that address affordability and environmental matters, a concerted effort to connect customers with rebates and assistance programs, and transparency about the energy supply and plans for the future. It was another quiet month in terms of energy market price movements. Total projected fuel and purchase power expenses increased by $4 million this month. This was led by higher price assumptions for petroleum, coke, and energy sales for March coming in stronger than previously expected. Offsetting these two increases were lower natural gas prices and lower purchase power price assumptions. Ultimately, expense projections have increased relatively slightly this month compared to the large monthly moves we have seen over the past year. We are also pleased to report that due to continued efforts on storm hardening and prompt restoration responses, outage durations in March were at their lowest level this fiscal year. Finally, pay for performance is currently projected at 3.5% of base salaries. This concludes the monthly performance update. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
What'd you do? You've been here 90 days and you're already making a presentation to the board?
Right place at the right time.
Happy to have you.
Thank you very much.
Nancy.
Morning, everybody. We're excited to be in our new facility while still working out a few kinks and details, asking our team members here to be patient as we get settled in. It really is a different way of working and people seem to be enjoying it. We began discussions for a new headquarters as far back as 2016. We formed an internal team to look at options, 2017, 2018 timeframe. And then we issued a formal invitation to negotiate in the fall of 2018. assisted by CBRE as our owner's representative and broker representative. We selected this current location and Ryan Companies to be our partner in July of 2019. As we began planning details of the building, the new board came in. We renegotiated the size and scope of the project in the May-June timeframe of 2020, really led by our current board chair, Mr. Stein. And that helped us save funding approximately $10 to $14 million. We had planned also to do a separate hardened facility, and we have deferred that with some other good alternatives to serving as our emergency operations center. The project was really a design build lease. We had a separate interior design firm, RS&H, who's based here, national firm based locally, and construction commenced in fall of 2020. This just shows some of the numbers of what we have in the building, the types of spaces. And so I won't read these, but we have a lot of different kinds of places to sit and think and do our work now. The building offers a variety to promote collaboration, allow us focus work, some really great training facilities, and our new customer service area. It's built on a new model where we meet customers really face-to-face, one-on-one, in a more personal way. It's been exciting for our customers and our team that serves those customers every day to learn and grow the system together. We offer self-service payment kiosks. Those have worked out great, and we're receiving good feedback from our customers as we learn the new model together. As I mentioned, the layout is different. Almost every area in the building has access to light and view. It was designed with LEED and WELL principles. We're working on those applications now. WELL is really to impact human health and well-being, so the occupants of the building, and LEED is more about methods and materials for healthy, efficient, carbon and cost-saving green buildings. So we're proud to be one of the first in the region to have hopefully both those certifications soon. And then we have several members of our extended team here. I'd like to recognize the video at the introduction of the meeting. The time lapse was produced by Ryan. The time lapse and their great professional photography. So we appreciate that. And I'll ask you guys to stand as I call the company names. Ryan Company, Scott Stemmons here from Tampa. He's the VP of Construction for the Southeast region. Caitlin Lee is our on-site building manager. So she's really become part of our team every day. Lots of phone calls and interaction with Caitlin, who is a can-do person. Doug D could not be here because of another commitment, but he's the president of Southeast Region and has been really hand in hand with me the whole time we've been doing this and takes a personal interest in being sure everything's right. Thank you. The next team I'd like to recognize is RS&H, again, local national firm, but based in Jacksonville. Chris Bold is our senior architect. Chuck Fritz, senior VP, and Chung Rudder is a senior VP. Chung actually worked on the old JEA headquarters when we bought it and moved in over there. So thanks to them for being here. Brienne Wildman was our interior designer, and she couldn't be here today. From H. Stephen Jones and Associates, Stephen Jones, Vice President, is a local firm who's helped us with all things security, technology, and things I don't really understand very well. From Purdue Office Interiors, Vince McCormick is the president, and they are a big partner with Steelcase. So we really appreciate their contributions to the project. I don't think there's anyone from CBRE here. They are really an international firm, but we have a strong presence here in Jacksonville. So Eric Lee and Robert Shaw is Director of Project Management. So with all these teams and others, we thank you for your partnership. That concludes. Thank you.
Yeah, let me add something. Chair Baker at the time says we're going to cut cost out and we're going to keep the same quality. And without Nancy and Jordan, this couldn't have been possible. So it was during COVID, it was a difficult time, and the amount of time and efforts that the two of them put forth throughout this process should be thanked. And their teams. Yeah.
Yeah, Chair Stein, I was going to add most of the same thing you just said, but I think maybe even double down on the idea that Nancy VC and the effort that she did. She doesn't want any recognition, but I appreciate the work that she did, and Matt Poteet working with her hand in hand to be sure this was able to go. We do lots of projects, and we've got lots of team members that are working on projects, but this one affects so many of the employees and the people, and so I appreciate the time and effort that Nancy put into this, and that Matt put into this, and the rest of the team. It took a lot of time and effort to get us here, so thank you, Nancy, too. Appreciate it. Thank you.
With that, we'll move towards the Customer Workforce Committee report. Tom? Tom Van Ostel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I apologize. I don't have the report in front of me, but we had we met, had a wonderful update on a number of items, and so again, I apologize that I don't have the report directly in front of me to be able to share the specifics. But it was a highly productive meeting, very well organized, lots of good news shared on both fronts.
Any comments, thoughts? Finance and Operations Committee report.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Stein. So the Finance and Operations Committee met on April 14th, and I was joined by fellow committee members Marty Linehan and Rick Morales. And also I'd like to thank John Baker for being there too. We talked about annual disclosure reports, and Randall Barnes, treasurer, provided a review of the annual disclosure reports. You may recall this is a yearly agenda item. The ADRs contain financial and operating information and are required to be filed with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. Last month, staff provided draft versions of the ADRs for our review. This month, we received final drafts of the ADRs that include appendices and a markup showing the change from last month. We will be asking the board to take action on the ADRs in the consent agenda portion of today's meeting. We also talked about the investment policy revision. Additionally, Randall provided us with a review of JEA's cash investment categories: cash invested for operational needs and cash invested to meet debt service or debt reserve requirements. After review, staff has decided to focus the way cash is invested and track its performance in a way that is more in line with the cash flow needs. During the consent agenda portion of the meeting, we will be asked to take action on this agenda item. Specific changes to the policy are outlined in your materials. Staff is seeking the board's approval to expand the reach of financial professionals who can advise JEA on managing investments, and B, provide a little more flexibility in how they're able to invest the assets without taking undue risk. And finally, the Electrical Integrated Resource Plan goals. Pedro Melendez, Vice President, Engineering and Construction, provided the committee with a review of the recommended goals by 2030, and we'll hear from Pedro here in a little bit on that.
One question, Joe, or Ted, is the capital outlay, we're $20 million, close to $20 million over budget on electric and $20 million under budget on water and sewer. Is that just a timing issue? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I was going to just remind of our need to take a look at the salary run rate as we look at budgets for next year. I think we had talked about potentially digging into that. Salary differentials, between 22 and 23 just stood out as I looked at the package. But we had talked about that during our rate hearing.
Yeah, the salary 22 to 23 was the negotiations that we went through as a significant change. And the difference to the budget is the timing of having to get the budget over to the city at July and the negotiations not happening till later. So,
I remember
yeah,
there's also,
we got to get a handle on all of those. Yeah.
and it's really about the growth in the salaries and the FTEs, which is what we specifically
That's
called
right.
out.
I'd like to, can I go back to the customer workforce committee just for a second? When
Absolutely.
there were several items that I think each of you has access to and can see the minutes and the discussion of that. But we had what I think was a good conversation on a handful of important topics that included a more deep dive into the J.D. Powers results, looking at how we do affordability. Some of the conversation that we're going to have later today around electrification, we got into, and then in line with what we're talking about on salaries, we also have to do just general talent planning and long-term workforce planning that includes succession planning, because we have 30% of our workforce that can retire. And so being sure that we get the right numbers and the right plans for that in place is something that's important. We also dug into the employee engagement survey results and went through that information. But one of the topics that we covered in particular was a fuel pricing policy review because of the changes that we made in our the hedging policy and the way that we pass through the fuel rate. Victor Blackshear gave a presentation. We've asked him to give a short update on that in today's meeting, just so everybody will be able to see what happened with that process. So, Victor.
Thank you, Jay. Good morning, board. I'm Victor Blackshear, Director of Financial Planning and Rates, and I'm here to do a quick look back to compare our old fuel pricing policy to our revised pricing policy and the results therein. As a reminder, the old fuel pricing policy required us to adjust the fuel rates anytime our actuals plus our forecasted fuel costs exceeded 10% of our projected fuel cost. So when we take a look back, as well as we had to target a 15% fuel stabilization fund, 15% of our highest annual fuel costs. So we had those two drivers that used to drive our fuel rates historically. So when we take a look back historically to see how it compares to our current rate, our current fuel pricing policy, you can see the blue line represents the old policy and the green line represents the revised policy. If we would have stayed under the old policy, we would have raised our rates 3 times in the past. You can see there November, as well as May, as well as August. The major takeaway here is under the old policy, our customers would have paid $118 million more in fuel charges in order to achieve a 15% targeted fuel fund stabilization balance. So that was IO. Thank you. There's one more slide.
One more. I think that was one more.
Okay.
This one, yeah, that's it.
Thank you. All right. So the first slide is showing when fuel costs was increasing, and you see how that was impacting our fuel rates. And now in this year, we see our fuel costs declining. So the fuel stabilization fund did minimize or stabilize the slope in the fuel rates. However, even in declining fuel costs, we're still holding, under the old policy, we would have still held over $100 million of our customers' money. So in this look back, the conclusion that I see is that leadership and the board made a really great decision in changing the pricing policy because it really has saved our customers millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to External Affairs Committee, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The External Affairs Committee met on April 18th, 2023. I was joined by fellow committee member John Baker. We heard several presentations on how JEA is working to deepen customer community engagement and plan for the future. The JEA staff provided us with a summary to date of significant legislation in Tallahassee and heads-up information on key federal air and water EPA regulations and insights onto how customer and communications division is working together to understand our customers' perceptions and convey positive messages about the JEA and the ways we are building community to provide an excellent service. JEA received an invitation from the House Subcommittee on Water Quality, Supply, and Treatment. I would like to extend appreciation to Randa Marshall, our Chief Operating Officer, for representing the JEA's efforts in resiliency projects, environmental stewardship, capital investment plans, and advanced treatments like our purified water plan. On economic development, the board took action on an economic development agenda that will be later included in the consent agenda. I would like to ask Paul Mitchell to come forward, Vice President of Economic Development, to present this plan.
We're also glad that Paul's health is back. Yeah.
Thank you.
We're excited to see you. And yes.
It's truly a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. But for those that know, Paul went through heart surgery and is 100% recovered. And yes.
Thank you. Like I said, it is a pleasure to be here, and I'm very, very, very excited. It's not cliche. So if you do hear a little bit of tremor in my voice, it is excitement, not nerves, because I'm very pleased to be here to be able to talk to the board, just to review this program that's in front of us. But before I get to the slide, I just wanted to remind, just as a reminder of our strategic initiatives, that as an economic driver of Northeast Florida, JEA is committed to help lead and support the region's growth initiatives by focusing on a couple things: site readiness, which means to assess and invest in utility infrastructure to key sites and assets; downtown revitalization, which means to support and partner with the city of Jacksonville on their enhanced downtown revitalization plans, and to refresh our own economic development incentives. All this drives economic growth and additional companies that increase tax base, capital investment, and new jobs in Northeast Florida, thus contributing to our mission to improve lives and build community. The first step is to provide value to existing and potential companies by offering more competitive rates for our services. This is currently addressed through our existing electric economic development rider program, or EDP. And the purpose of this program is to encourage and attract expansion and growth in our service territory by providing lower cost of energy. To qualify for the program, on the left-hand side, the left column, is our current EDP. And to qualify for that, a company has to bring in 300 kilowatts of new or increased demand, create 15 full-time jobs within our service territory, and that's it. Which is pretty low requirement for that rider. There's also an extra 5% granted for businesses that are in an area of excess capacity. We'd also like to offer that discount to economic development projects that locate in downtown area. The program is 6 years long, starts at 30% discount, decreases by 5% per year throughout the life of the program. At the moment, there are 18 companies that currently have economic development program agreements in place. While we've had success with this program, we would like to propose an enhanced discount schedule, or a second tier, which is on the left-hand side. To qualify for this program, a company would have to bring in 500 kilowatts of new or increased demand and create 50 new jobs in a service territory. Or with this program, we would like to add another element to it. And that is that the project be in Florida's target industry list, which is approved by JAX USA and the city of Jacksonville. And in that list is manufacturing, defense, aerospace, life sciences, logistics and distribution, IT, financial and business services, and headquarters projects. Why? Because these industries typically pay higher wages and require a great deal of capital investment. Since these programs reside within our electric tariff, a public hearing is necessary to edit and add these proposals. Change will not affect or impact any existing customers. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Because
18 would have qualified for the list.
Right now, we're still looking at it, but it looks to be about 5.
Okay.
any other questions? Leave the consent agenda.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Jody?
Good morning, Chair Stein. Good morning, Board. Jody Brooks, Chief Administrative Officer, here to give you the update on Plant Vogtle. As reported in our last meeting, March 6th was a milestone event that occurred in which the Unit 3 started generating nuclear power. And on April 4th, I'm happy to report that they successfully synced to the electric grid, which is necessary for the delivery of this clean energy to JEA. The operators are slowly bringing up the reactor power and continuously testing Unit 3. As of last Friday, MEAG reported that the current schedule anticipates Unit 3 reaching 75% reactor power level by tomorrow, April 26. Once the unit reaches between 50 and 70% power levels, the unit will stay active and on and will not come offline again. And it's anticipated that the new proposed projected commercial operation date is now May 27th. We're still using the June date, but there's the optimism from MEAG that the 27th Unit 3 will become operational and delivering this clean power to JEA. Unit 4 is in hot functional testing and continues to be in hot functional testing. That's supposed to be finished if it finishes on time and on track at their current projected schedule of May 5th. And the in-service date for Unit 4 continues to be projected for fourth quarter of 23 or first quarter of 24. MEAG has continued to give us updates on a weekly, sometimes daily basis about the testing in the Unit 3. And if there's any significant changes there, I think they've been very responsive on the testing efforts of Unit 3 and Unit 4. So we're optimistic that we're going to have clean energy being delivered fairly soon with Unit 3. Any questions?
Any questions? After this long process, we're making headway, and Jody, appreciate, and the whole team appreciate all the focus.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about the April Fool's Day, April 1st of being synced to the electric grid, but that was a very exciting, very milestone day of April 1st. Thank you.
Jordan?
About JEA's work with the Electric Power Research Institute, or EPRI. Hopefully you heard the first part of that sentence when the microphone cut on. By way of background, EPRI was founded in 1972 and is an independent nonprofit energy research and development organization. As a member, JEA has benefited by leveraging EPRI's extensive knowledge and research across the utility industry. Currently, JEA is collaborating with EPRI on several projects around distributed energy, electrification, power generation, climate change and resilience, health and safety, and more. But one specific project I would like to highlight is an indoor agriculture facility that our CFO, Ted Phillips, has championed. The facility, sometimes called an electrification garden, recreates acres worth of farmland within a 40-foot container by using advanced vertical farming techniques that efficiently leverage light and water. As we plan for the future and deepen customer and community engagement, We look forward to deploying our first indoor agriculture facility within JEA system this year and expanding our knowledge of the technology, its positive societal impacts, and the potential energy and water solutions it provides. But today, we are pleased to have David Porter, join us for a more in-depth conversation around electrification and electric vehicles. Mr. Porter is the Vice President for Electrification and Sustainable Energy Strategy, and in this role, he provides executive oversight and leadership for the teams responsible for EPRI's research, development, and demonstration of electrification and customer solutions, sustainability and ecosystem stewardship, and environmental health and safety. David sounds like a busy guy. He has worked across a variety of utility operations, including power marketing, transmission, distribution, energy efficiency, customer programs, and sustainability. We are grateful he has joined us today, and with your permission, Mr. Chair, we will ask him to provide his insights.
Look forward to it. David?
Thank you, Jordan, and Chair Stein and board members and JEA leadership. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Both Kathy and I do, and we very much value the relationship and partnership that we have in working with JEA and the other member company utilities that EPRI deals with on a daily basis. And it's always a pleasure to be able to meet with the leadership of those organizations and talk about some of the exciting things that we're doing together, whether it's the indoor agriculture opportunities or what's in front of us with electric transportation. So today, I'd like to share some very high-level thoughts with you around what's going on with electric transportation, specifically in the United States, a bit about what's happening here with Jacksonville Electric Authority, and I'm going to be followed by Matt Lundeen and Bailey, who are going to talk about some specifics there. But there's some good things going on here with the JEA and their electric transportation efforts. And they fit very well with a lot of things that are happening within the country. So if I could, we'll start with a few facts and figures about the U.S. market and where we are today. The availability of electric vehicles is greater than it's ever been in the United States today, and it continues to grow. More models come out from the manufacturers almost daily. There will be hundreds available before long. And they're at a variety of price points. Depending on how much you'd like to sink into a vehicle, you can find something that will suit your fancy into some very large price tags if you're so inclined. There are major commitments by every automaker worldwide to retool their facilities to take on and produce electric vehicles. They have committed more than $1 trillion of capital investment over the next decade to make that happen. And I think the other thing that's really important that has happened from the vehicle manufacturers is that they have also set dates certain for when they will no longer produce internal combustion engine vehicles. That's every bit as important, if not more important, than what they're doing to ramp up production of EVs. EVs, if you talk to customers who own them, do any of you own an electric vehicle today? Ooh, we're going to have a conversation about that.
Two waiting lists.
Two waiting, okay. Yes, if you're waiting on the Ford Lightning, that's a very long waiting list, the F-150. But if you have the opportunity to drive any electric vehicle, you will find as a customer, you talk to people who own these vehicles, they are wonderful to drive. They're powerful, they're fast, they're smooth, and they're economically favored to operate against an internal combustion engine vehicle. For utilities, electrification of transportation is one of the great growth opportunities that has come along in many, many years. And the other thing that goes with that I think is very important to note, and it's really important as you think about things like your long-term planning, integrated resource planning, electric vehicles also represent a load that is mobile. It is a potential flexible resource for the grid if the charging and discharging of those vehicles is properly managed. So let's look at some specifics on the U.S. market and where we stand today. You might remember that President Biden put a target out for 2030 to have 50% of all new vehicles coming off the assembly line to be electric. That's a great goal. Put that in perspective with where we are today. There's a little over 3 million vehicles, electric vehicles on the road in the United States. For us to make that target by 2030, the annual growth rate for electric vehicle production in this country has to grow by 40% per year, every year between now and 2030. That is a daunting task. It's one that the electric vehicle manufacturers are trying to make, but it is not easy. The other box on this slide that's important to note, and you'll think, why did you mention June of 22 as a bellwether point from last year? But it's where we in the U.S. crossed the 6% threshold for the percentage of new vehicles being electric that are produced in this country. That is important historically because if you look at countries that have had high growth of electric vehicles, this has been the tipping point. This is where the adoption curve and growth curve really starts to steepen and the growth happens much more quickly. So the piece of that we need to take note of is that charging infrastructure and utility infrastructure to support this increased growth is going to have to come along quickly in order to support the growth. Now, all this growth that we're talking about comes not only with opportunity, but also with challenges. So let's take a look at some of the challenges and opportunities that are associated with electric transportation. While electric vehicle ownership is increasing and is going to continue to increase, I mentioned challenges for the OEMs, the equipment manufacturers. The supply chain issues that you read about, those are very real. There are a lot of materials, a lot of rare earth minerals and metals that are required to create these EVs. There's a challenge in where those come from in a lot of places around the world. And it is a challenge for every one of the manufacturers. Many of them have made some great inroads, and I'll point to GM here in particular. GM has created a new supply chain strategy where all of their materials to support the build out of their electric vehicle programs are now coming from what we would call friendly flag countries. There's, this is Australia, this is New Zealand, this is Canada. These are places that have very stable governments and very stable futures. And it's not likely that the potential of a leadership change is going to impact their supply chain going forward. And that's really important. I called GM out because I know what they have set specifically that by the end of 2025, they will have put out in that 12-month calendar year almost 1.5 million electric vehicles. That will be slightly more than 50% of their annual production. They can't commit to that without those key supply chain needs being met. Medium duty and heavy duty vehicles, whether it's last mile delivery vans all the way to semis that run up and down I-95 here in this area on a regular basis. That's still very nascent in terms of development, but it's coming. The people that own and operate these fleets want to go to electric. The challenges that come with that is related to kind of two things. One, proper planning for the fleet owner operator as well as the utility, and also meeting the loads in a timely manner with those heavy duty, medium duty transport. Right now, there's not even a market available charger for a heavy duty semi that requires a 1 megawatt charger. It's not available. It's under development, but it makes adoption of those technologies slow down a bit because these folks are used to pulling a diesel semi in, spending a few minutes at the pump there, taking out a lot of money, but they're gassed up and they're ready to go. That same level of service has to be available for them to make electric semis functional and economical. And if you think about, take a Flying J truck stop, for example, where there's, I don't know how many pumps today, feeding diesel and gasoline to transport. When electric transport takes over and becomes the majority provider of over-the-road trucking in a few years, that Flying J truck stop is now going to be a 40 or 50 megawatt load for JEA to serve. That does not happen overnight. That does not happen with the distribution circuit. That happens with a transmission circuit and a substation construction. And that does not happen overnight either. The good news, I think here, and Matt will talk more about this for what JEA is doing. JEA is launching a fleet program. And I think one of the great things that's in that program is what they have put together to actually do one-to-one planning with fleet owner operators so that both the fleet owner operator is ready and JEA is ready for when they bring those loads on board. So you think about all these opportunities and challenge. For all the work that we do at EPRI, we develop 5 guiding principles that we're using to drive our work and also work with utilities to make sure we all get where we need to go. So let's take a look at those. There's 5 guiding principles here in this really catchy little acronym CARES that Arshad Mansour, our CEO, came up with. I've been trying to convince him that we should reorder this and call it e-cars, but I hadn't been able to sell that to him yet. So it at least had a little pizzazz, but I'm still working on that. Kathy, you can help me with that, please. But the 5 are compatibility, affordability, reliability, equity, and security. I'll say a couple things about each one of these now, and then we'll dive into 3 of these in a little bit more detail because they are just absolutely critical. Compatibility is about standardization and interoperability. Every piece of electric vehicle supply equipment that is put out and attached to the grid has to be able to communicate with every electric vehicle in order for these things to work properly. It's no different than pulling into any gas station and being able to pull a hose off the rack and put it in your car. It's got to work the same way on the electric side to make it seamless and usable for people that own these cars. Affordability is critical. Right now, the challenges are in public charging and cost transparency. We'll talk more about that one. We'll also talk more about reliability. But if you look at the public infrastructure, charging infrastructure that's out there today and the performance of that, it is abysmal. Unless you happen to have a Tesla logo on there. They have pristine platinum level service for their charging. No one else can even touch that today. Then there's equity. In equity, and we talk about equity, environmental justice, energy justice, it's not about providing EVs and charging infrastructure into disadvantaged communities. It's about giving those communities initially access to e-mobility options, giving them opportunities. Can we, I'm sorry, Eric, can we go back? Thank you, sir. We'll talk more about equity, so I'll go to that. But then security, of course, is very important to everybody in this room, the folks at JEA. Electric vehicles are very highly technology-based, internet-connected machines. And cybersecurity threats are certainly there, and that's important not only to the people who own and operate those vehicles, but to the people who maintain and operate the grids. So let's talk about the affordability piece very quickly. For those who are able to do so, 80% of the time they will charge their vehicles at home. The remaining 15% will be done at work, and the last 5% will be done on public charging. When you look at the statistics in the US, more than 30% of people live in multifamily dwellings. That immediately removes the private charging option out of the equation. So that means they're going to be more dependent on public charging. The challenge with public charging, if you look in the middle of this chart, you'll see 3 bar graphs there. It compares residential charging costs at an average rate across the US to level 2 charging and DC fast charging. The important takeaway here in that visual is that level 2 charging is currently twice as expensive as charging at home, whether it's level 1 or 2 charging at home. DC fast charging in public is 2.5 times more expensive. This is a real challenge for scaling electric transportation into the marketplace. And part of the reason for that is electric vehicles should have a $6,000 to $10,000 average cost savings over the lifetime of the vehicle against an internal combustion engine vehicle, typical sedan type car. if the cost to charge publicly is so much higher, it's going to really dissipate those savings, diminish those savings, or do away with them altogether. That will challenge getting to scale. Let's talk now about reliability a bit. If you look at the top of this slide, you'll see some of the maladies that occur in public charging infrastructure today. There's nothing there about the plug. That's not the problem. It's about payment methods. It's about software interfaces. It's about ease of use, and it's about understanding of the charging process. It's very challenging out there today. And if you look statistically at the public charging hardware out there today, downtimes for that equipment run between 5% and 39% on a national average. That's a terrible average. And if you think about some of the government money that's coming out, whether it's the NEVI and the National Electric Highway Coalition program, some of the things in the IRA provision, the federal standards for uptime for people that are investing in public charging infrastructure is going to be 97%. That's not even close to where anybody is today, with the exception of Tesla. So that's a real challenge going forward, and is going to need a lot of attention to get fixed. A lot of that's going to depend on O&M practices and having workforces to do that. There's an opportunity there for utilities to be engaged with that, even though some utilities, and this is about a 50-50 split around the U.S., some utilities really want to own and operate charging infrastructure. Others want nothing to do with it. And for JEA, you have made the choice not to own charging infrastructure, but there's still opportunity for you to work with the folks who do and help them with O&M practices and make that a better resource for the general public. Lastly, let me touch very quickly on equity. Disadvantaged communities in the U.S. are 30% of census tracts in the most recent census. And the folks who live in these communities don't typically own vehicles, and they contribute very little to the actual production of motor vehicle pollution in the United States today. However, they suffer a disproportionately large negative health impact from motor vehicle pollution, because the major transit corridors are typically adjacent to or go through a lot of these communities. So the opportunities, as I was mentioning early, to have an impact from an equity standpoint on electric transportation is not to put everybody in an electric vehicle initially, but for the disadvantaged communities, it's to electrify buses and trucks and fleets and clean up the major transit corridors going through our urban areas. That's where the real opportunities are in terms of equity. So as we think about all these things, there is a lot of opportunity. There is a lot of challenge for the industry as a whole, for the OEMs, and for the utilities. I'd like to close with just a couple of comments on how important utilities are and the opportunities are for utilities to make this a reality going forward and achieve these goals at 2030 and 2050. A lot of what you see on this slide, I would say, ignore a bit, because these are bigger picture things for those utilities in the U.S. that intend to own the charging infrastructure. But there are a couple of key things here that do apply for Jacksonville Electric. One of those is raising customer confidence. There's no better way to do that than to help customers make sure they're really set up for successful charging at home. And your programs do that. They're educated, they understand how to manage charging, and you're working today to produce some time of use rates, which give them even more options to control their costs and the times at which they charge. That's a huge boost to their confidence. The second one is around managed charging overall, whether it's workplace charging or whether it's public charging, and working with the people that own that infrastructure and help them do a better job of managing the charging times and the demands and how that reflects back on your system. If you're able to reduce net peak load through managed charging, that has a significant favorable impact to your operations as well as to all of your customers and the cost to deliver electricity to them. With that, I'd say thank you again for the opportunity to be here. This is a really exciting time for us at EPRI. What's going on with electrification, the opportunity to clean up end uses, particularly transportation, but also industrial applications, and many others behind the meter, and clean those up not only by getting rid of fossil fuels there, but also by providing clean electrons onto the grid to then supply those loads. It's a great opportunity for the industry and a great opportunity for utilities and particularly society, because we're at one of those stages right now that's kind of rare where the energy industry and society have intersecting interests. And it's a great opportunity for all of us to work together to make some gains. So thank you for having me.
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
What do you estimate that the electric vehicle demand for electricity will do to the overall demand for electricity? Is it 5%, 10%?
It's a great question. It gets back to that point I was making about managed charging. The vehicles today already are equipped with something that we helped develop that's called Open Vehicle to Grid Integration Platform. Acronym OVGIP. We can't help but have acronyms at EPRI, so I apologize for that. But the telemetry that's in every one of those vehicles has the ability to communicate with automated demand response capabilities that utilities have on their systems. And if people are willing to work with the utilities and through managed charging programs, a lot of that can really be controlled. It can also be controlled by things like installing solar panels at workplace locations for those charging infrastructure owners, so that the match between solar power and workplace charging is a thing of beauty. And folks can charge at the workplace, and that can be completely offset by solar power. And again, you hold the peak load down overall. So it really boils down to how well the utility and the customers manage that. So it's really hard to put, to give you a number maybe in perspective, if we see the level of electrification of all end uses to where we think it's going to go, including transportation, but transportation, space heating, industrial process loads, increasing from total final energy use of electricity today of around 20% to something on the order of 45% by 2050, then the net increase in demand across the U.S. is going to be about 52 to 53%.
Really?
Yes.
So, anybody have their?
I had a total aside question. So if you want to go more linear, then go first.
Before I get off better. Who's going to pay for building these roads?
That was my question.
You know, that's something nobody wants to touch on. And I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but somebody's got to, you know, we're talking about gas tax versus, you know, electric vehicle you're not paying for, and the road system is going to maintain, you know, the upkeep is going to need it, and new roads going to be, who's going to pay for that? How are you going to pay for that?
That's a great question. What we have seen thus far is obviously these vehicles are not going to pay gas tax. A few states have started to increase the property tax on electric vehicles. So they're picking it up there since they're not getting in the gas tax. That's been the most common early steps we've seen. Honestly, I don't think a lot of people in terms of government agencies have really thought that through very much yet.
Tax or something.
I think we'll eventually get there, but I think it's going to take some more prolific growth of electric vehicles. And one of the other challenges with EVs right now, and until battery densities improve, electric vehicles weigh more than an internal combustion vehicle. So they put additional wear and tear on the roads that internal combustion vehicles don't. So it's a great point. It needs to be addressed by.
That was my question. I was the past chair of the Florida Transportation Commission, and we actually studied this some 20 years ago. And Nevada, I think, did a case study around use taxes, and everybody freaked out. I mean, just freaked out. So I think I was going to ask if you see any dialogue, because there's a huge disconnect on how we fund those roads and where we're going with EVs.
And as we see the growth, if you think about, we've hit that tipping point. If we're going to get anywhere close to 50% penetration of new vehicle sales by 2030, then the states will see a decrease in those gasoline taxes by the time we get there. And that's to the point you've all made. They need to think about that now as opposed to 6 years from now.
I was traveling this weekend and pulled into a Buc-ee's and hundreds of gas stations. And obviously the infrastructure to feed, one of those stations and so forth is unbelievable. Is there any planning for that in the future? I mean, is there any idea of what we're really going to need?
Yes. And I think programs like Matt's going to talk about and working with those folks is going to be really important to meet the needs on a, on a local basis. But those types of installations need not to just say, like a Flying J. It's going to take 20 megawatts load. Local utility, come get me a transformer and a drop here to give me 20 megawatts of load. That's not going to do it. It's got to be a combination of that, support from the grid. There has to be energy storage capability there, and there needs to be renewable capabilities there. That's the only way that you can successfully manage operating the grid in a proper fashion and not making the cost so prohibitive that people can't afford to charge their vehicles there.
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. It's just that infrastructure just seems mind-boggling at this point.
It's an integrated solution for sure.
David, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
I think that just as a reminder, the idea that David is here is because this is a significant issue. To your point, it is the reason that we need to do an IRP again in 3 years and again in 3 years, is because the infrastructure that we're going to need to be able to support. I've said before that the challenge for electric vehicles that we don't spend as much time talking about is the infrastructure, like to serve a large facility like that. If there's not some other technologies that have happened within neighborhoods, and we have transformers that would need to be replaced, a distribution issue, a transmission issue, as much as it is a generation issue for us. And it's another reason that the next IRP has to be more broad in the way we approach it. And then it's also the reason that when we call Matt Lundeen, we're going to introduce him, or he's going to introduce himself as the Director of Distributed Resources. That is an area that is growing within the industry, within the expectation of what our customers want, that is going to become more and more and more important. And it's the reason we have somebody in the role to think about distributed resources that a number of years ago tended to be, well, how are we going to put some solar in some places? That's what people, kind of the proxy for distributed resources. And now we're talking about electric vehicles and batteries and renewables and just general service to our customers. And the questions that you all asked are the ones that we're grappling with every day.
John?
Why have we said we're just not going to participate in this as JEA?
So we have said up to this point, we're not prepared to own our own electric vehicle public charging so far. That's the right decision up to this point, because there were so many changes in the, I should look to David and be sure he's nodding at me, but just the standards of what the charging stations would look like. And you saw the reliability of those stations that caused enough concern for us that it didn't make sense at this point. ongoing, there may come a time where it does make sense for us to have and participate in some sort of public electric charging station. So something we're going to need to keep on looking at, but the world is changing so much that it's not the business that we're good at running a utility, and we've got to change the mindset with new business kind of efforts. And another part of what the team that Jordan and Matt are working on every day to be sure that we're able to change the way we approach things. So far, we don't think we should be in it. That might change. I don't think Matt's going to announce today that it's changing, but it's.
Well, I just would tell you that one of our missions is to develop this community. And if we don't do it, then we hoping somebody else will is not a good strategy.
That's right. So we're partnering with lots of people doing that. And we're partnering with the car dealerships and fleets and other places. So it's not that we are ignoring it. It's that we've decided not to be the owners of it.
But yeah. The other thing is the convenience store industry is looking at it very seriously. And I just think we've got to see where this thing, I mean.
There was been an article in the paper to that, op-ed in the paper in the last few weeks, kind of pointing out that we should not be in that business. And so we have to balance the needs of the community. We do have to be able to serve it. The electricity will come from us, so we have to do that. Thank you, David.
Matt.
All right, no pressure. So thank you, Chair Stein, and good morning, members of the board. So for today's presentation, I will briefly share what JEA is doing for electrification, to support electrification today and in the future. So thank you for the opportunity to be here this morning. My name is Matt Lundeen. It's a privilege to have been part of this great organization for almost 18 years now. I'm the Director of Distributed Resources, and my team's focus is on developing and implementing transformational initiatives that enhance the customer's experience by preparing the utility for a future with increasing electrification and distributed energy resources. This includes developing clean energy options for our customers, demand response programs, and establishing JEA's distributed energy resources vision and strategy. So I'd like to start by noting that JEA has two active programs that not only support but promote electrification. First program to note is JEA's Electrification Rebate Program. This is a robust program that deepens customer engagement and also fosters economic development with our commercial and industrial customers by enabling various electronic technology solutions with prescriptive and custom incentives. So as a quick refresher, electrification is the process of converting a system or technology from using non-electrical energy sources such as fossil fuels to electricity. So this includes conversion of commercial and industrial equipment and processes. The general aim of electrification is to increase efficiency, improve safety in a given system, and reduce environmental impact. So although electric vehicles, we've talked about those a lot today, are indeed part of electrification, equipment like forklifts are also an illustration of this conversion. So JEA's Electrification Rebate Program was started in 2015 and has positively benefited the community by reducing over 1 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions through customer end-use electrification. So for comparison, this would take over 1.2 million acres of forest or the removal of about 228,000 gas-powered passenger cars from the road for 1 year to achieve the same reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. The second program I'd like to note is JEA's Drive Electric program. This program provides a comprehensive EV education service to our customers, as well as incentive opportunities for our customers that have EVs. In the Drive Electric program, we've had over 58,000 customer interactions since June of 2021.
And to support the reliability of the electric grid, the program incentivizes off-peak EV charging. JEA uses various communication mediums to market the program, such as social media, email and postcard campaigns, websites such as the JEA Drive Electric, as well as the Plug in America event pages, and local dealerships. In addition to these programs, and in planning for the future of electrification, there are a couple of items I'd like to highlight. The first item to note is the assessment of potential impacts to utilities from considerable electrification growth, such as a substantial and rapid adoption of EVs. As noted in David's presentation, planning for this transition is critical. So JEA is taking various actions to plan and prepare for increased electrification. These efforts include engaging with industry experts like the Electric Power Research Institute for various challenges, such as to better understand EV charging behaviors in our community. We are also engaging in efforts to explore cost structures targeted at promoting the increase in EV adoption and influencing charging habits, as well as participating in committees and planning organizations that support the increase of public EV charging infrastructure in our community. The second item to highlight is JEA's fleet electrification program that is planned to launch in June of this year. This is a new program that is aimed at providing comprehensive advisory and consulting services to our customers that are interested in converting their fleets. The conversion plans developed in this program will include total cost of ownership calculations, estimated annual charging needs, and recommended EV charging infrastructure. In addition, an important component of this program is to identify process improvement opportunities that are aimed at making it easier to do business with JEA. I would also like to highlight that we are committed to leveraging this program with our own fleet of vehicles to do a full assessment of our current assets and assess future needs in order to develop a comprehensive fleet conversion plan for JEA. Our Director of Facilities and Fleet Services, Bailey Brunell, will share more about JEA's fleet plan shortly. So in closing, JEA is committed to evolving our electrification program designs as our customers' needs change, as well as being engaged in how we can leverage various new and existing technologies to advance the quality of life in all the communities we serve. Thank you.
Matt, thank you. Any questions? Bailey?
Morning, Chair Stein and the board. My name is Bailey Brunell, and I'm the Director of Facilities and Fleet Services here at JEA. And today I'm pleased to share some of the work that we have done in advancing our fleet electrification. We've made great progress in the addition of our EVs and hybrid vehicles, work that has helped us earn the distinction of one of the top 100 public fleets in North America. Our fleet consists of about 1,700 assets, ranging from small trailers and trailer-mounted equipment up to our large vacuum trucks and aerial units. Of this, about 5% of our fleet is fully electric or hybrid today, with more on order. Until recently, the market hasn't provided many options that fit into our fleet without sacrificing operational efficiency. As our options grow, we anticipate a more rapid growth in our electric fleet. We've seen the most growth options in the half-ton pickup trucks, material handling equipment, heavy equipment, and specialized equipment like ground rod drivers and some of our wire pullers. In fact, we are the first in the state of Florida to purchase the first mass-produced electric excavator. It's currently working in our meter services group and allowing the crews to work quietly in residential areas more efficiently. The electric wire pullers have been well received. They're both quiet and odorless. And we started to incorporate the 40-foot and 55-foot hybrid bucket trucks into our fleet. And these allow us to continue to operate the attachments while the engine is shut off during the work. We've also ordered 10 Ford Lightning, which is a long line, the first fully electric half-ton pickup. And we're looking forward to incorporating those when they do arrive into our fleet. Of course, the addition of EVs is not without its challenges. The availability for fleets is still a challenge, and the market for electric work trucks like the Ford Lightning
are popular with retail customers and eventually take priority over the fleet sales. The order time for our 10 has been about 2 years, which is also ironically about the same as the gas-powered alternative. Another challenge we face is the culture of adoption. And while technology has been improving to address many of the initial concerns with EVs in fleet, the perception of lower performance still exists. We're working to alleviate these by demoing our units, piloting new trucks into different groups throughout JEA, and allowing our users to speak directly with manufacturers and talk with them about their concerns and provide feedback. The infrastructure planning that we've been discussing is still a concern, but we've been planning ahead for charging infrastructure at our own JEA facilities. But consistent charging around our service area is still a concern for those that work far from a JEA facility. These challenges are not unique to JEA or the industry. And integrating EVs into the fleet is more successful with the support of our internal teams like Matt's team and other agencies around the city. Infrastructure, again, continues to be a concern, and growing in electrification together helps us make that transition smoother and more successful. Our fleet services team has been working alongside our customer solutions team to support Drive Electric events locally and provide information and resources to help them with their goals and customer outreach. The City of Jacksonville, Jacksport, and Duval County Public School System fleet managers have been meeting to discuss progress in electrification and share ideas on how we can work together to advance electrification in our respective fleets. Our fleet stays connected through the North Florida TPO to participate in discussion of electric growth locally and throughout the state. Some of the other considerations we have as we grow our electric fleet include the discussion of cost. And while the cost of EVs has been dropping in recent years, they're still priced above the gasoline and diesel alternatives. However, the price differential can be reduced further by looking at the total cost of ownership in the hybrid or in electric vehicles. Our team also monitors the regulatory changes locally, statewide, and across the country to ensure we are ahead of any regulations or mandates that may impact our operations. So as we look forward, we are excited to work alongside Matt's team to help build our strategic electrification plan and grow the EVs and JEA's own fleet. It's through these small changes in the way that we do business that help demonstrate our commitment to sustainable practices within the community. I appreciate your time today and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Congratulations again.
Yeah.
Never seen an electric backhoe before. That's neat.
With an electric backhoe?
Yeah,
I think it's coming.
yeah. With a little excavator, at least. It's hard.
It works pretty great.
Pedro, you get the easy one.
Good morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Difficult thing to follow, right? When we're talking about a lot of the things in the future, we'll wrap it up that way today. So good morning, Chair and Governing Board. We heard about Vogtle today, electrification, and JEA's commitment to customers. We also appreciate the discussion that we had during the last board meeting. It was enlightening to hear everybody discussing our goals and having insightful questions and feedback, which is important for our future. We're here to answer any questions and provide a progress on the ongoing JEA Site Solars RFP and move for approval of the JEA clean energy goals. Some key areas of progress as shared this morning. Earlier this month, JEA increased by additional 2% the amount of clean energy with 150 megawatts of solar from FPL. With JEA joining FMPA, we are on our way to secure up to 150 megawatts of solar PPA with FMPA. We expect to bring this detail for the next board meeting. Great news. I'm excited. I'll say that. Many of us are excited. We received 15 proposals to develop the JEA sites that we have in our footprint with various offerings. The evaluation began yesterday. We have a cross-functional team from various areas, operations, finance, electric resources to ensure we have a fair evaluation. At the end of this month, we should have a short list. Then we expect to complete the selection process and announce that by the end of June. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Black and Beach team and the consultants that help us in this journey, but also all the employees in this organization. We have a great team, has been working very hard for a long time. It was a pleasure to join and help them along the way, but definitely the very engaged stakeholders representation has helped us to get to a common interest to advance JEA's energy mix. We heard it today. We acknowledge there's opportunities between now and 2030 and from 2030 and beyond. The next IRP is going to help us to shape that future. Nonetheless, we would like to answer any questions related to the 2030 IRP goals. That's what I have for you.
Any questions?
I just have some comments, like with Chair Stein. First, I think that the whole process, the stakeholder engagement was fantastic. And I think, and we said we're committed to doing IRP every 3 years or when necessary, but I still think we have to find some type of the appropriate mechanism to maintain good stakeholder engagement in between IRP, convening those IRPs. These objectives here, in my opinion, some characterize it as modest. I think they're very pragmatic. And again, my concern was making promises that we can't keep. I don't think we've done that. And I think these goals are laying a solid foundation for improving on our commitment to be renewable by 2050 to whatever percentage. And then I would like to, unless I've got this wrong, the combined cycle, not plant, but generator, whatever. It's not that we have fully committed to doing that. In FY24, we're going to be looking to see if that's the way we want to go. So like there's a decision point. So just it's not a foregone conclusion that JEA is doing that unless I'm speaking wrong. There's going to be a deliberate process to look at this again next calendar year to see if that's a smart thing to do based on where we are technology wise on that. So I think it's important that that folks understand we're committed to doing this. And as a board member, I'm very concerned, but also looking forward to technology and how that's going to change things so that we keep abreast of that and use that to the advantage as we continue to make progress toward 100% renewables on that. So thank you.
Let me address some of it. This is a difficult process. There's short-term needs. Oh, yeah. There's short-term needs and there are some medium and long-term needs. When we make decisions, we're making decisions that won't be produced for 5 to 7 years. So the one thing I'd say is, Pedro and your team, thank you. I also think, Jay, it'd be worthwhile getting a monthly update of where we are on this process. I know everybody's anxious for zero carbon, but it takes time and there's a lot of things that are new. And when we make commitments, they're large commitments. So what I'd say is, and when you add transmission, and that's probably 25% of additional costs nobody's thinking about. So when you talk about this is the cost of solar, this is the cost of gas, one of the things we got to think through is what is the additional cost of transmission? And that's one of the things that Jay and Pedro and the team are focused on. So I think my thought is make sure we're looking out to 2050, but also making sure that we're getting update on a monthly basis, whether it's a short update. And I know a lot of energy went into this from your whole team, Jay, and I commend you for it. And the other thing I'll say is some of the stuff we've inherited, good, bad, or indifferent, when you talk about some of these issues, our team has spent a lot of time looking at how do we take those five sites that should have been on grid today, those solar sites. We're catching up on that because in Vogtle, it is what it is. It is clean energy, but it is something that our team has worked on. I give a lot of credit to a lot of people in this JEA staff. So with that, I'll hand it to you, Jay, unless there's.
I mean, I think, a lot of work has gone into this plan And this plan, we're not sitting here, we're not approving. In fact, we are building a combined cycle plant today. At the way we're looking at today is that's probably the best option, but technology and so forth. I mean, that's the goal or the vision today. But obviously, reviewing this as we go forward. I mean, I think of I love the idea of solar, but the transmission and still the storage isn't quite there yet. And that might, yeah, exactly. The reliability of when I build buildings for a living and there are a lot of times we can't build buildings. We're supposed to pour concrete this week on a big project and we postponed it because it's supposed to rain and look what happened. So I think this is the right approach. I think it's a pragmatic approach. I think it's the right approach for the citizens and our customers. And I think we should move forward.
I was also going to ask for, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Regular updates so that we can be held accountable to these targets. And I continue to say, a real plan around solar is needed. Rooftop, I mean, solar, all the different things that the folks addressed today. Residential is important, commercial rooftops important, farms are important, and I would love for us to really dig into that in a more specific way at this body, Pedro. And the next IRP, which is 3 years, it's going to be here before you know it. I really do challenge us to put a stake in the ground for 2050.
But I'm going to address solar, and I'm a big believer, but 80% of those panels come from China. They need to be replaced every 6 years. The battery systems are being improved. So in these solar farms that we're building, a lot of our, they do move or challenge animal movement. So there's challenges to everything we do. There's no perfect solution, and technology is moving in a positive way. So I think we've got to be thoughtful, smart, and agile in our thought process. With that, I'll hand it to John.
I would take a different approach. I think we have been cautious like engineers should be and not over-promising and under-delivering because we don't know what the future holds. But I think it's got to be a stated goal of JEA to become as carbon-free as possible and as practical. Something, you don't have to say zero carbon, but you cannot look these people in the eye and say, our plan is to build a combined cycle plant. I think everybody on this board agrees with most everything we heard today, that we have got to be the leaders in making sure that this community is provided with reliable, safe, cheap electricity, but we've also got to have an eye on the environment in a very, very serious way. And to not say that is to almost deny it.
So I appreciate all the comments. I'm going to try to hit, I think.
Before you do that, is Tom
Oh, yeah.
or Dr. Faison want to comment? Tom?
Nothing further from me, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Faison? Yeah, I'll hand it to you, Jay.
Okay. First of all, thank you for the involvement that you all have had through this process and the help and support to get us to this point. I think the IRP itself has a series of scenarios that lay out what a future could look like. It is not a specific plan, an actionable plan that the IRP indicates. It shows a bunch of different views. As we heard today, when David talked about from your question on what is the growth on electrification going to do, one of our plans shows a large increase in electrification driven by the things that we talked about today. The goals that we're asking you to consider and that we're recommending that you approve today are not safe and easy goals. They are pragmatic, they are thoughtful, but they also were the outcome of all of the scenarios that we had. 5 out of 6 of them indicated this is the direction to go, whether we see a slowdown in the economy, whether we see electrification growing, or anything in between that. That was the kind of the idea. I believe that the stretch that you're asking for to be sure that we have in that next round, and what I think I'm hearing Mr. Baker say is the same type of activities we need to look at beyond just the next 6 or 7 years to get us to 2030. The point that Chair Stein made that we're catching up from past decisions is also true, that we are, I've said it, I don't know, several meetings in a row, the idea that we are, I mean, quite frankly, the idea that we're celebrating that we're at 4% is, we just didn't do what we needed to do along the way as an organization to be at 4% today. So to get from 4% to 35% clean energy, I think is impactful. 80% reduction is a goal and a target between now and 2030. So we do have these targets and lines in the sand that are not insignificant. One of the things that we need to do in our next IRP plan is to be sure that as we are looking out to 2040 and 2050, and really beyond to the next one in 3 years, we'll be looking at 2055. We'll be even further out is that we should put controls within our system that we're not going to have a model that replaces non-carbon emitting generation with carbon emitting generation. That goes the wrong direction. Our plan right now has some of the systems are looking at least cost, and our carbon actually goes up in some of those plans in the far. That's not the actual implementation plan, but we should put some controls in our plans in the next round too. This model and this sets of goals, I think, define and allow us to give the updates that you're asking for on how we're moving forward with 100% clean energy to serve our own needs, how we can offset electrification demand with energy efficiency. That's not an insignificant, especially if the electrification takes off like we're talking about. That's going to change the way we do the programs. The request to look at solar matches up with the distributed resources team that Matt and his team are leading. So all of those things combined, I think, actually meet those expectations, but we should do better. And I think that's what you're saying. We should do better and keep on doing better. This helps us do better to keep into account affordability and the environment and the sustainability of our systems. So I would encourage us to move forward with these goals and then absolutely have continued updates on the progress on the goals.
So in the past, I'm just going to throw an idea out, but in the past, when things have been really important to us about diversity and equity on this board, as an example, we passed a resolution as a body, and it was more of a philosophical resolution. And I'm not saying we need to do this right this second, but John, you articulated what I've been feeling through this whole process, that we do aspire here, but the plan keeps us here. So I wondered, Chair, if you and staff could kind of capture what we're expressing in some type of resolution at a future meeting.
Well, I think we need a resolution right now.
I understand on the plan, but I'm talking
But on
about
the
for the
plan,
future.
can we articulate what John, you were trying to say in a motion? And can we have a monthly update to make sure that we're aware as a board what is being done? You know, or can we capture that in a motion?
I think we can do both. I think what would recommend that we do is approve these goals with the motion that I hope will be considered favorably today. And then we need to be more thoughtful about how to come back with that longer term goal that really can set us up well for the next IRP. So remember, part of the input that we have going into IRPs, we put some of those inputs in, and if we have some language around what that needs to look like, then that helps us be ready. So I would suggest that that you consider the goals that are before us for today. That will allow our team to begin working on what our aggressive. This will have to take us to 1,300 megawatts of solar and batteries in the next 7 years. It is a substantial lift to be able to accomplish this and to create the plans that go forward. And then over the next several months, we can work on what the resolution of a longer term, more aspirational goals for longer term might make sense. That feels kind of a balance where we can recognize the input that we've had from stakeholders, understand what the impact is to our budgets, not just in the 24 budget, but the ongoing budgets. And absolutely the continued updates at regular intervals, I think I think what we're supposed to do.
Is there a motion?
I move
Second.
approval of these goals.
Second.
Can we add on a monthly basis to get updated on where we are on that?
Regular basis.
I think we can do regular basis without it being in the resolution. We will continue to regularly update you. Yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pedro, thank you and your team for a lot of hard work and Black and Beach for their work. Is there any other old or new business? Just want to appreciate everybody, what they're doing and the commitment they're making to make JEA the top utility in the country. And with that, I'll close.
Thank you.